Good morning. I hope it is going well with you and your practice today. I am going to wrap up my overview of the orchestral conducting workshop that I was at a few weeks ago. I've done a few videos this week talking about some of the experiences, some of the lessons I learned there. And I'm going to talk today about next steps, follow-up, integration. Now, let me just take a minute to remind you, on this channel, everything I talk about, whether it's music or meditation, creativity, the workplace, anything I talk about here, I want to see it as part of the unfolding of authentic presence, right? That there are lessons in every domain of life that can cultivate this presence. And I'm becoming more and more specific about that over time. So today, when I talk about orchestral conducting, and I keep saying orchestral conducting, but what other kind of conducting? Do you think I went to a workshop on, like Amtrak, how to be a conductor? Which I would love to be, by the way. I wish I had. That would be a great life, I think, on one of those long haul trains. Anyway, today, what did I learn? And more importantly, what am I going to do now to continue to develop those skills? And there's a couple of different areas I'm going to talk about. The first is, of course, the actual technique of conducting. Like, as a musician, what did I learn, and how am I going to continue to develop that? Right? The practice of music, right? The technique, the craft of it. How can I develop that? And then I want to talk about how to continue to learn from the sense of setting aside my acquired skills, set those aside, and that sense of absorption in the music, which, yes, overlaps with some of the musical technique, but what can I do to maintain or cultivate that awareness? Right. So that's a bit vague, but I'll come back to that. Let's talk about the specifics, right? So Marquand teaches a very precise sense of shaping the beat and connecting to the sound through the beat. So we did a lot of very fundamental, basic, but quite profound exercises with freeing the body, letting the arm articulate the beat, not worrying about baton technique, just a clean, easy to see beat that is connected to the sound within the beat. You can't really see it when I do that. So there are exercises that come along with that. They look a little bit like Tai Chi. And next to that, with my physical therapist, also teaches martial arts. So with that, I've started practicing like a Tai Chi based martial art with my physical therapist. So in addition to the sort of core exercises I do with him to just kind of maintain my physical equilibrium, we're starting to do some of these I'm calling it Tai Chi, and it's not really. He's got kind of a personalized, idiosyncratic approach, which is ideal for me. I'm not looking to get belts and what have you in a martial art. I want to be able to move in a certain way. So there's some just foundational physical mechanics that I can continue to work on. But then those are important only to the extent that I can participate with an ensemble. And I don't have an ensemble. I'm not in a graduate program. I'm not in, I don't conduct a group. So I'm working to pull something together. And it's quite ambitious even in this initial stage, right? I have a piece that I wrote for double wind octet. So I actually 15 players plus a piano and some percussion. And what I want to do is recruit players from around Pittsburgh who would be willing to show up for a couple of sessions just reading through, right? Not performance, not a concert, just reading through. That would be great for me to actually hear the piece, right? As a composer, that would be incredibly valuable. But as a conductor, I would be able to practice. So I'm just reaching out with this. There's a lot of confidence or lack of confidence or fear or embarrassment associated with all of this. And I'm just moving through that. I want in October, November to have 2, maybe 3 sessions where the goal is to read through and record 2 of these movements. The piece has 7 movements. It's called 7 Essays. And I'll record the first and the last. So they're the most different, and I think they're the most informed movements, which is why they're the beginning and the end. Not that the other 5 movements are filler, but those framing movements are important. So I'll do that, because then what I'd like to be able to do is send those videos, and Mark End is very generous with his time. He'll meet on Zoom and go through and review that. I did this in January and February with 4 or 5 players, friends who just volunteered, and that's great, and I'll probably continue to do that as well. But the ensemble is whoever shows up. So I would have like a trombone, a flute. At one point I actually had a sackbut, the medieval instrument, or a couple of recorders, a cello, a guitar, just right, and then we would play arrangements. That was great. That was very helpful to just stand up and do that. But I really want to, while continuing to do that, I want to have some larger projects in mind. Then, in that same vein, really being very ambitious, next year in 2026, I'm writing a cantata. Right, so for a chamber orchestra, small choir, maybe 8 voices, a couple of soloists. This is the Crossing Brooklyn Ferry piece that I've talked about, right? So a cantata using Whitman's text from that poem. And although that would probably be a concert, I'm really not that keen on concerts. I'm much more interested in getting a good video recording that I can put on YouTube. But concerts are nice, right? A concert is good. So that's a thread, right? The ensemble. I'm going to put a link in the community post on the channel here, so you can see what I'm talking about in terms of trying to pull people in. And look, if you're in Pittsburgh and want to do that, let me know. Or if you know anyone who's in Pittsburgh and wants to do that, let me know. So there's that. Mark End teaches a course through the fall online with music analysis. So kind of one of the things that struck me is, and I talked about this when I talked about the Schumann, right, where the strongest conducting I did was actually with the music that I was least prepared for. And yeah, there were plenty of mistakes, but the mistakes weren't nuanced stick technique. Whatever, I wasn't even using a stick. The mistakes were because I lost the thread of the shape of the piece. And Mark End teaches an analysis course that helps, whatever the scale of the music, identifying sort of the energy levels of the piece, like where does it really need to move to, how do you get there. That seems sensible to me, to memorize that shape and participate with the orchestra to shape towards that, and then the beat and my conducting gestures are there to shape the music towards that. So I'm going to take that course. Now, studying and courses, that's a pretty good segue into the other side of things, right? Because that idea of the energy of the piece, the shaping of the piece, comes along with I think what the most important thing I learned there was that I can separate the part of me that is anxious, the part of me that wants to do well, the part of me that thinks I'm a good musician, right? The part of me that thinks I'm a creative person. That is just thought. That comes from the meditative understanding of the self. And standing in front of an orchestra is the crucible for learning that lesson. Because the only way I was able to do anything, right, those first steps that I took, came when it wasn't even a question of confidence anymore. It was just a question of presence. So you can see why this is so important for this work, this channel. I'm not saying that you need to stand in front of an orchestra in order to be able to learn this, but the cultivation of that sense of here I am, here is the moment. This moment here happens to be filled with sound. What it isn't filled with is a sense of I am going to do this well. You are going to do this. We are going. Instead, this is going to happen. This is a really important realization. And what's interesting about this course is it's not a new realization. I've talked about that kind of language 1,000 times, even on this channel, let alone the other times that I've taught meditation or in my own daily practice for the last few decades. To say that the self is not the same as the experience is Buddhism 101. And that's what I was trying to say a few days ago when I said we have these crucible experiences where the undeniable truth is, or the truth is undeniable. It's often clear when I'm sitting on a cushion that my thoughts are not my experience, that there is even the sense of self is a perturbation of consciousness. But then there are these moments where it's just like a gong, boom, right? Okay. So I don't know if the practice that I have at Omo Ling supports that. The teaching does. I just wonder if I'm too wrapped up in the institutionalization of that. I don't know, right? These are things I need to think about. But what I do know is that in the workshop, this happened because I turned it over to God. Now, you may be surprised to hear me not being so explicitly Christian and liturgical, but it's an element of my practice over the last few years that's become really important and doesn't contradict meditation or anything like that. That's stuff we can talk about. But in my study practice, my specific practice, I've signed up for a program on Coursera on Methodist spiritual imagination. It's whatever, a 3-month, 5-module course at the heart of Methodism, the core of salvation through faith, grace given freely in the model of Methodism. I'm going to do that and absorb that. I'm also taking a course through ThinkSpace, which is like an online music tech space, but they have published a really great course collaborating with Spitfire. Spitfire is a sound design shop in United Kingdom, and they have a sample library called the BBC SO Symphony Orchestra. That's a fantastic orchestral sample library that I have. At least I have their introductory level of it, but I don't really know how to do any of that stuff. Right? I just put a score and then listen to the shitty MIDI playback. I want to be able to create reasonably sounding excerpts of my compositions. I can see for like Crossing Brooklyn Ferry, having a 3-minute video that goes on somewhere like Patreon, where I'm playing orchestral renditions done using this tool. It's not that I know nothing, but I don't know how to do it well. So I'm taking this course. You see what I mean? Everything fits into this fits into this rubric of presence, right? Conducting music technique, composition, and the ability to learn how to present that in a way that will draw people in, right? Methodism. And this is all on top of my daily meditation practice and these little Dharma videos. Is that what these are? Dharma videos? Yeah. I wonder what that sound was. Did you hear that? I think what it's saying is it's time to wrap it up. It's been 15 minutes. Today's July the 4th. I'm actually going to go out for a longer walk. I took my dogs out for their usual walk this morning, but I'm not working today. It's a federal holiday here in the bank, and I'm going to take advantage of that. Yeah, I'm gonna stop. I'm hearing like ocean sounds. I wonder if that's Siri doing something. Anyway, keep your wits about you. Please like, subscribe, and share. Share this video. Get one more person subscribed. All right? Keep your wits about you.